Hi, I'm Diane.
Hi, I'm Paul.
And we are
Car Zombies! What are you doing?
It's my favorite tool.
Okay.
Okay, today we're going to change the coolant on my car.
Right, we're going to use a method that's generic that I use on my car because it's easy. It'll be easy for you. You don't have to jack up your car. And along the way, we're going to tell you about the details that the pros don't tell you about how to change a coolant in your car.
But before that, let's talk about the basics of coolant.
All right.
Okay, what is coolant?
Okay, coolant is a mixture of antifreeze and water. We use distilled water because normal tap water has minerals that will cause clogging of your pipes and your hoses in your car. So you need to add coolant in to prevent the water from boiling, to prevent it from freezing in the winter when your car's sitting outside at the side of the road, and also to prevent it from corroding, the coolant itself from corroding as it passes the different metals and hoses and gaskets in your car.
I've seen 50-50 coolant. What's the difference?
Okay, 50-50 coolant says 50-50 on the front, and it says pre-diluted, don't add water. This is 2 gallons of coolant. 1 gallon antifreeze, 1 gallon of water. This is 1 gallon of coolant. You buy 2 of these to be the equivalent of this. 2 of these would cost you about 34 bucks. This costs about $27. So it's a lot cheaper to use the concentrate, but it's a little harder because you have to mix it if you're just topping off.
So why would you buy this if it's more expensive?
It seems less expensive if you're just topping off the coolant. You don't need 2 gallons when you're just topping off the coolant. But topping off the coolant means your coolant reservoir is just running a little low and you're just filling it back up. Changing the coolant is something that you have to do on a regular basis, and that's what we're going to do today with your car.
Okay.
In your case, you have to change it every 3 years or 30,000 miles. And when we change it, we need to remove the coolant that's in the car and replace it with new coolant. And in the process that we're going to use today, it's much easier to do that with concentrate coolant than non-concentrated.
So what are the dangers of antifreeze?
There's a couple of dangers. The first danger is it's poisonous, and so you want to keep it away from pets. You want to clean it up off the floor if it spills. The second danger is it's kept in the car under pressure. So when you take off the cap of your radiator or your coolant reservoir, it could potentially spray because it's under pressure, and that spray will be boiling hot. So you want to be careful of how hot it is. Same as when we're draining it from the bottom, it comes out very hot.
So are there different kinds of coolant?
Yes, they are. And they're different colors too. And you want to make sure never to mix 2 different colors of coolant. And in this case, this is the blue coolant for your car. It's G48. So it's the same. This is just pre-mixed. This is not pre-mixed. But you want to find out from your owner's manual or go to the local auto parts store or look it up on Amazon and put in the details of your car, and it'll tell you what kind of coolant you should be using in your car. Now that may be different. If you looked up your car dye, it would actually say use G05.
Oh.
Because yours is a 2000. And it's thinking, hey, okay, use G05 if you're just topping it up and you still have the original coolant in your car. But here we are 24 years later, you don't have the same coolant in your car.
Yeah,
You've already been upgraded. Over time, they've improved the coolant, and the new improved coolant for your car is G48. So that's what we bought.
Okay, let's get started.
Okay, let's start with the method. We're trying to actually change all your coolant. You need to do this whenever your coolant expires. So it's about 30,000 miles or 3 years. When you change the coolant, you have to get all of it out so you can do that. Well, you can't easily get it all out. First of all, you need a prop. How about we use this Coke bottle?
Okay.
All right, pretend this Coke bottle is a car. This is the rear of the car, this is the front of the car.
It looks like soda to me.
Yes, actually it's root beer. Root beer's way cool. If this is a car and it's heavy and it's sitting on the floor, you can't just lift it up and drain it all out. You know, I mean, you could jack it up a little bit, but there's still gonna be coolant getting caught inside different parts of the engine. And in fact, the hoses in your car would be often, this is a hose from your car, comes from your coolant tank even, and goes to your radiator, coolant tank to radiator. And if you were to just open it up at the radiator, you might still have coolant stuck in parts of the low spots of this. And inside your engine, there's lots of little ways that the coolant has to flow through. So it's gonna end up opening the radiator only lets out about half of your coolant.
So what do you do?
So you have 2 ways of draining the coolant in your car. One way is you let what you can out of the radiator, let's call that the cap. And then you also try to let it out of the engine block, and you also try to figure out a way to get it out of the heater core. Maybe a couple of cups of pure antifreeze is still in the mix when they do that.
So are they not efficient? Or
No, that's just easier for a pro to do. It's fast. They have the jacks and everything. So what we're going to do is a different method. So the way that we get your car to have a low enough amount of antifreeze that you could consider it removed, you want to get down to less than a cup of antifreeze. And the way to do that is you let out the half a coolant you have, and then you fill it back in with distilled water, start the engine, turn on the heater, get it all circulated and mixed together, stop the car, re-drain it, and repeat that process. Each time you drain out half and then re-dilute it, you're changing this to about half of what you had. You had 50% antifreeze the first time. After the first drain and flush, you have 25%, then 12%, then 6%. It's that easy.
Oh, wow, good.
So if you just do it 3 times, you're probably down to about a cup of antifreeze, which is exactly what the pros do when they change out your coolant. At that point, it's diluted enough, you can put in the new coolant and you're done.
Okay.
But how do you know how much coolant to put in? Well, first thing you do, Di, is you look in your manual and you see what is the capacity of your coolant.
Okay, mine is 3 gallons approximately, isn't it?
Yeah, yours is 3 gallons. Yeah. My car is about 2.5 gallons. So that tells you when you want 50-50 mix after you've diluted it all out and you're basically got just distilled water in the car, then you would put back just the concentrate amount you need for half of your capacity. So if you're at 3 gallons, you need to put 1.5 gallons of concentrate. All this will become clear as we do it. Let's go do it.
All right, so Paul, does it matter how the car is parked in the garage because we have a slope to our garage floor?
Yeah, and in fact, let's talk to the cameras. You know what? That's a great point you made. The first time I changed the coolant in my car, I did it with the radiator in the front at the higher end of the garage. So you remember that soda bottle?
Yeah.
It's like I have the radiator on the wrong side of gravity and I couldn't get as much coolant out of it. So that's why this time I parked your car low side where the radiator is. Now that will change how when you fill up, the last time you fill up your coolant reservoir, you could also end up putting in too much coolant at the end. And so when you get to the end, you want to, before it's completely full, drive it to a level surface and then top it off with distilled water at that point.
Oh, okay.
That'll make things a little easier. Pros, you left that out of your tip.
Okay, let's get the coolant out.
All right, wait. Brakes. To do this method and to do it right, you need to know how much coolant comes out every time you flush it. All right, because we're only going to take coolant out of the radiator. We're not going to try to undo the engine block or the heater hoses and stuff like that. So because of that, you need to know how much comes out. Right now is the best time because it's cold coolant. After we fill it back up and flush it, we're going to start the engine and it's going to be hot coolant. I don't want to measure hot coolant. I'd rather measure cold coolant.
Yeah.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. Before we do anything else, we're going to top off the reservoir. And the reason why is if we just emptied it out now, we wouldn't know what, in your case, it looks like there's about 1/2 gallon missing from your reservoir.
Right.
We may only get 1 gallon in the bucket and we'll say, oh no, we're going to need to add 1.5 gallons of concentrate at the end, but we don't know if we can fit it.
You're right.
So if we top that off with just distilled water, which is fine, it helps start the dilution process, then we empty it out, we'll know if we can get 1.5 gallons out. If we can get 1.5 gallons out, because her capacity is 3 gallons, then we know at the end we can only we can fit back in 1.5 gallons of the concentrate and we'll have the perfect mix for your car.
Okay.
All right, so let's do that. Okay, Di, we're gonna top off the coolant. Do you know what to do next?
I want to get going.
No. All right, another tip the pros don't always tell you. Some of them do, some of them don't. Usually there's a warning somewhere. We're making it clear. Don't just open a coolant tank ever. Even if you know the car sat all night and we know it's cool, you want to be careful. Coolant's kept under pressure and it's poisonous. So you want to open it slowly. You want to wear safety goggles, gloves, and you're so cute. And use a rag. Now open it, and you should learn how to open it. It will say in your manual. In ours case, you turn it 1/2 turn and let the pressure out. There should be no pressure.
Can I do it now?
Yes. Give it a second. You don't hear any pressure? Okay, and then you can finish opening it. I know I'm bossy, huh?
You're absolutely right.
Thanks. Okay, your coolant is full when the coolant reaches the point on the reservoir up to this line. So that's what
That
we're doing.
line?
Yeah, to where
Okay.
the black is. Here's a funnel. We're only going to put distilled water in now because we're going to be flushing. This just starts the flushing process. It's leveling out right about the top. Okay, the first thing you're gonna do, Di, is you're gonna take off the engine shield that blocks the bottom of your radiator. Your car may be different. The Mercedes have a plate under the car that kind of protects things from hitting the engine. If you have one of those, take off the little bolts and take out your plate. Everybody has a plug somewhere under your radiator. That's how you empty the coolant out of almost every car. And so find that plug under your radiator and we'll continue from there.
Okay, I see two here. Which one do I use?
Oh, hey, another pro detail. Last time we changed our car dye, remember we used this one? We thought that was great. I even wrote coolant on it because I thought this would be our coolant drain pan.
Yeah.
Pros didn't tell us how messy it is. As soon as the coolant hit this, 80% of it splashed out and all over everything. It was such a mess. So get a deep coolant drain pan. That way, some of these even have splash cards. I'll link to one on the details of this video. And in this case, it actually tells you this is 5 quarts, 10 quarts, up to 20 quarts. So it's nice to know how much coolant you've captured as well. That's what you need for coolant. And then that way you make less mess, less cleanup, less poison everywhere.
Yes, love it.
Also, and we did this, measure your car. If you have to put it underneath the radiator, it has to fit. Di's car is only 8 inches off the ground. Fortunately, this is 7, so it fits.
Yes.
And while we're at it, some cars actually have a nozzle you can hook a hose up to. Your car is one of them.
Yay!
Yours takes a 1/2-inch hose inside diameter. I bought one.
Yeah.
And we're gonna hook it up, and that way when you let out the coolant, it'll just go through the hose and it'll be really clean.
Oh, wow, I love it.
Yes, I wish the pros had mentioned that, but my car doesn't have one, so you just have to deal with splatter.
Okay, do you want me to just connect the hose?
No, first of all, clean around the nozzle.
Okay.
Oh, this is a detail pros leave out as well. If you do have a hose, you should clean around the nozzle first. You don't want any debris inside your radiator. And secondly, before you hook up the hose, put the dish soap on the inside of the hose so that it goes on and off easily. And it's the off we're worried about, because if it's going on too tight and you're like trying to take it off, you could break that nozzle. That nozzle typically on radiators today are plastic. And if you break it, you have to buy a new radiator. You can't buy just the nozzle.
Yeah, no, you don't want that. I think it's on it.
All right. I routed it to come out the front.
Oh, nice.
We're gonna leave the top of the cap off. That's because we're using a hose, and when you start loosening the radiator, we want it just to flow freely. But if you want it to flow slowly at first, because you don't want too big a mess underneath the car, put the cap back on, take off the plug if it's gonna drain straight from the plug. Make sure your Pell and everything's where you want it, and then take the cap off, and then when it comes out really fast, because it has air at the top. Just like holding a straw. You put some fluid in a straw and hold it tip.
Right.
It's gonna stay in the straw. You lift up your finger and it falls out. That's the same thing here. We need the air at the top before it all starts to fall out. You're just gonna let out a little bit and it should start flowing.
I hear something coming out.
Oh yeah, it's coming out.
Okay, so we tightened the radiator drain plug and we're ready to flush the system using distilled water.
I like the hose for the drain of your thing.
I love
wish
that
mine
too.
had one of those.
I know.
That is awesome. Okay, Di, now we got the distilled water in. We're gonna start the engine. Now, some people ask, can you start an engine with just water in it? Of course you can. Now the water at some point may start to boil. If you're in a really hot climate, you gotta be careful of that. It's certainly not gonna freeze while the engine's going.
No.
So you shouldn't have to worry about needing antifreeze. And since it's just distilled water, we don't really have to worry about any corrosion or anything for a few minutes. So we could start it, but we've got to make sure we keep the reservoir topped off as we go.
Okay.
While we start the engine, it's going to mix the coolant together for us. Now, how is that engine going to mix the coolant for us? You have any idea?
He's testing me right now. I know it. I'm going to say it goes to the radiator, to the water pump, to the heater, back, and it heats up, and then it goes back to the radiator and cools off.
Right, so the car driving cools
Yeah.
off. That's perfect, just like I told her in take 1 5 minutes ago. So now, but I love it. You got it perfect. That's what's happening. So the water pump's circulating it for us, and as it circulates it, it kind of mixes it. You know. So then we're going to have it diluted. We want to dilute what's in the heater pipes as well. So we do want to make sure we turn on the heater and get that going. So what we're going to do is start it up. Keep an eye that the reservoir doesn't go low, and let the car warm up. All right.
All right.
we marked the bottles old coolant, and that way as this gets lighter and lighter, it starts to look like water. We know it's not water. This is what we got from the first run. 2 1/4, maybe, well, you know what, you could probably put that in the other 2, about 2 gallons worth.
Yeah, 2 gallons.
So we're getting a good dilution, Di.
Yeah.
It's pretty cold in here, but it's getting close to the 80 Celsius. I'm gonna now rev the engine a bit. I think it's cold because it's just blowing the cold air through. Oh yeah. Now I'm feeling, oh yeah, it's coming through hot now.
I heard it.
Oh,
It went, ah.
It's starting to come out here a little
Wow,
bit.
it's really hot.
Look at that, it's coming out steamy hot.
It's really hot, but it looks diluted, somewhat diluted.
Tighten the bottom. So now we're filling it up for the second flush. Okay, Di, here's the good news. You just put in the distilled water for the second pass.
Right.
Well, this time when we start the car, it's already warm.
Yeah.
So the coolant itself isn't warm, but it'll warm up pretty fast because the engine is hot. And then it will start blowing the heater faster. And so we probably will only take about 5 or 10 minutes for this pass.
Oh, that's nice. We've done this 3 times. How do we know when we're finished?
That's a good question. It's a detail the pros leave out. You know what? I figured out an exact answer to that question. Let me show you. Let me get my notes.
Okay.
Okay, Di, I actually did the math. So here's the details the pros don't tell you. This is for your car, and I'll show you how to do it for other cars too. We started off with 3 gallons, half of it antifreeze, half of it water. Once we drained your car the first time, we found that we lost 2 gallons of the coolant. That left only 1 gallon left, or 1/3. So 1/3 of 1.5 gallons is 0.5 gallons of antifreeze. We diluted it, ran your engine, drained it. That time, there's only 0.17 gallons of antifreeze left in your car. Diluted it, ran your engine, 0.6. And we did it one more time, and we're down to 0.02 gallons of antifreeze. 0.02 gallons of antifreeze is 1/3 of a cup. Now we can add back just 1.5 gallons of antifreeze, so it's half and half, the remaining in distilled water, and get back to half and half once we run your engine. All right, and for those of you, this is the math part, you want to do this calculation on your car, here's what you do. You start with your capacity, which is what you got out of your owner's manual. E is the amount you empty on your first empty. So in our case, we got 2 gallons out. And then D is how many times you drain it. And you plug it into this formula, and for your car, Di, it came out to 1/3 a cup. Let's go do the change. Right now, we're gonna do our last drain and put in antifreeze.
Okay.
All right?
Coming out.
Yep, it's just started coming out. This is when we drained it the first time. This is after we diluted it once, twice. 3rd dilution, just a little bit of green in it. We got 2 different sets of plugs we bought. One's Mercedes, one's Mal. They're identical. I would pretty much tell you, Di, I think Mal makes the plug for the Mercedes.
I
Are you
agree.
excited? We're near the end.
Yes, I am.
Okay, we got down to where we know we have less than 1/3 of a cup of antifreeze. It's okay now to change even to a different color at this point. So what we're gonna do, and by the way, the pros won't get any more than that out just by using the drain plug on the engine. Believe me, this is really good. You've done better than they will.
Okay.
All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna put in the new coolant. We know you have a 3 gallon capacity. So what we're gonna do is put 1.5 gallons of concentrated coolant in, and that accounts for the 50-50. The rest will be distilled water.
Okay.
You can go,
You know how when we put it in the jugs, it was all foamy?
yeah, it's like that again.
No, not at all. It's
Interesting. We'll use the funnel and this jug and fill this one to the 1/2 gallon mark. That way we know we can just use it up again.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Right to the 1/2 gallons mark. And it rinsed out your funnel with distilled water.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, Diet still needs 1 inch of coolant, so we're not gonna fill it in the garage because we're at a slope. So we're gonna run it out to the curb where it's straight. We're gonna top off the coolant to where it's level, warm the car up again, bring it back in, and then we're gonna test the coolant. This is the last thing you need to do that the pros don't always tell you about. Okay, so first we put the engine plate back on the bottom, Di.
All right.
Last step, it's an optional step. It only costs $10 at Amazon, but if you're doing it yourself, it's not a bad idea to get one of these little testers. You suck up a little bit of the antifreeze and the little arrow inside will point to what degree of protection you have in terms of degrees of cold freezing protection. So you want to get to about minus 30 and you're fine, but you know your own climate. If you live in California, minus 30 may be crazy. So let's do this die and then we will be comfortable. Oh, by the way, this test right now should happen 2 days from now. So you really want to wait till you drove the car for a little while to make sure it's all fully mixed. Okay, Di, it's been a few days. We've driven it a lot. Let's see what we got. Let's see how it mixed up.
Okay.
You just push the bulb in to then suck it in. And then you just read where the red arrow points. Minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit. That's good enough for us in our climate.
Oh, great.
Just push the bulb again to push out the fluid. You can put that coolant right back in the tank. It's as clean as yesterday, so it's no problem.
Awesome.
Well, that's how you change your coolant. It's easy. It's all the details are there for you. You just have to look up what kind of coolant your car takes, do a little measuring, you're done. And that's pretty much it, Diane.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, well, guys, thanks for watching. Please subscribe.
Give us a thumbs up if you like us.
Bye.
Bye. Can I have a towel?
Oops, sorry.
Oh, that was good. Do you have that on camera? Because it was a pretty good catch.
I didn't get your good catch. You want me to throw it at you again?
That's all right.
Do you have a camera's a good catch? I swear, you're just like a guy. It's so funny.